You're listening to Pop This, the podcast where two women talk about everything pop culture. Here are your hosts, Lisa Christiansen and Andrea Warner.
So my coworker today said, "Oh, you know what song just came on?" I don't know where he'd been, because this is one of the things I actually, when I drive, I really prefer just to listen to the radio. I know a lot of people have, like their songs and
the number of times that I've been in that white spot at our work, that like it's and the soundtrack to whatever Galaxy station they're playing, really like some surprising material has come up.
I mean, when you're shopping and a song comes on, I like the randomness of music. I mean, and I know some people can do that with like a Spotify or an Apple playlist and put it on random, but it knows you. It's either going through your playlist or it's got some algorithm, so it already has an idea about you. It's so much more fun to have to be surprised by something because it doesn't know you. Yeah. So just my coworker today said, "Oh, I just heard Fiona Apple's Criminal." And I went, "Oh my gosh, you're right." And I just sat right down at my desk, picked up, typed that in, and was washed over again at how amazing that was. And then you just scared me and said it's 22 years old.
Yeah. No, I know. It's been a while for a lot of things.
And I mean, if I start doing the math, I'm like, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. And thinking about, I mean, as we've had many conversations about, like, you wrote a book about it. The 90s was a good time for women in music. There was a lot of really good stuff.
Yeah.
So, rehearing it was so powerful because I'd forgotten how great that song was, how significant it was, what's happened since then, how, we've had to have so many conversations about, wishing we could hear more women in music, and then just going, why don't they just put that on the radio again all the time?
Yeah, it's so, like, I just got through a music conference. I was gone for 4 days and listening to people talk about so many different. Fiona Apple came up a couple of different times, not sort of because of any sort of like deep dive into her catalog, or at least not that I was at, but just in terms of thinking about music that haunts you.
Yes.
And because the theme of the conference was like basically like death and ghosts and like stuff that haunts you. And
that's a good haunting song.
Oh my God. 4 days of I cried so much over the 4 days.
Why? What was?
Oh, because it was all it was just all grief and sadness and music and how we and all kinds of. There was this incredible panel about immigration soundscapes and being separated from your children at the border and oh my
goodness.
At one point someone played some of the music from Coco.
Oh wow.
Anyway. But and then there was another big panel HIV and various music sort of coming out of the AIDS crisis, and anyway, you name it, we've heard it this past weekend, and it's music is so important.
Yeah,
as being a vessel to carry, I don't know, just truth and feelings and hauntings. It's so much.
There's a song that for years I always liked, and then I had a friend die a couple of years ago, and it was just he had his death was just I know I've discussed it here before, but he just chose to become this just very outgoing. He was to a certain extent, but just there was so much of him just going out, and there was this real sense of being able to see all that he gave out his whole life and how it was coming back to him.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just don't know. I mean, in lots of ways, he got to go to his funeral before, so he could see all of that.
Yeah.
But that New Radical song, You Only Get What You Give, was always a great song. I thought, oh, that's it. And then all of a sudden, one day, I heard it in a car, and I burst out crying.
Yeah.
Could not stop crying. And now every time I hear that song, it makes me cry.
Yeah.
And I'm fascinated as to how that song made that change in my head. And I know, and then since I've shared it, that experience, so many people have come to me and said how that song is super meaningful to them.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's really interesting. And I know
it's not always songs that you think are going to be like the triggers.
Yeah.
It's sometimes it's just a song. Suddenly you hear its message in a different way.
Right.
Yeah. Even like outside of grief, which I think is something, and I have I've been talking about this a lot in the last few weeks actually, because it keeps coming up on podcasts as well, and grief and trauma, and not treating it as something we move through, but that we move with, and we do carry these things with us, because it's not something you can just get over. It's something that sort of changes you forever, and to make space for that in like your daily life. Or your weekly life, however you choose to carry your grief and trauma. Anyways, but also thinking about, like, I remember when I, like, truly fell in love for the first time, like, really, truly in love for the first time. And then you have that moment, and this is so dorky and cheesy, but, like, you have that moment where, like, all of a sudden love songs that you had only ever heard that were, like, very theoretical, and you were like, I can appreciate this. That sounds nice. And then you're like, oh, my God, I get it now,
Yeah.
you know? And just, like, having, and it might not be, like, a traditional love song. It might be something very, very specific and weird. But, like, songs have just this incredible personal like moment, as well as like a community moment, and finding sort of like the communion in all of these songs. Music is really cool. I know it sounds dumb, but like music is really
I know.
cool.
Just sometimes it is the background of your day.
Yeah.
In terms of, like we were saying, like you're in a restaurant, or you are shopping, or you're in someone else's car or something. And then sometimes it's just screaming at you, and you can't do anything but listen to it and feel it. And it is interesting that everyone has a different way. Like, you know how, especially because you and I both work in music journalism.
Yeah.
You'll always have somebody going, "Oh, have you heard this song?"
I know.
And they play it for you, and you go, like you're not hearing what they are.
No, and that's the thing. Like I think like I so often I think I'm a very empathetic listener, and so if someone says, listen to the song, it's one of my favorites, I can feel their enthusiasm for it.
That's true. Yes.
And so that's okay. And so that like gives me a different listening experience than if I was just doing it on my own. But the way that like I have really I don't know, just really like I internalize music so deeply, and I'm thinking about it, and it starts my brain working in a different way. I can't listen to it while I'm in the car. Like I have to only listen to podcasts. Because if I listen to music while I'm driving, I am thinking a lot of different things. Like it actually kind of feels like I'm being overwhelmed all the time.
Right. Okay.
And so like, yeah, so it's actually one of the reasons I really enjoy my record collection, because I had to be at home. I had to be like actively choosing. I'm not really good at passive listening anymore. And so that's been a little bit of an adjustment for me.
Interesting.
As a music fan.
Because I have, for me, being in the car, it's just that perfect place to sing. And I do.
Of course.
And I hand gesture. And I recognize that's dangerous, as you just pointed out.
Look, if you're going to be Celine somewhere, you be Celine in your car.
Oh, I went for a full Mariah. We Belong Together. And I was doing, and it was summer. And I was at an intersection and stopped. And I was in that song. Like you say, like, it's hard because I was connected. And looked to the left, and there was a guy on his motorcycle. And I looked, and he just went, "Please continue."
Yeah.
So I did.
Good,
I mean, we did not belong together, he and I, but Mariah and I.
Can you imagine if that was the beginning of your love story?
That was our meet cute?
With a random, like, motorcycle guy? Like, that would be adorable.
I wish. Now we've said it, and it can't happen.
No, we can. No, this is how we manifest it. It's fine. It's fine.
You just say it like that. You say it like that. Yeah, because that is the ultimate of a meet cute story. We already with a song. You already have that song established. There, you even have
we just wrote a better movie than the one we're going to talk about. And I will also say that the music might be one of the only saving graces of this film.
This is a good soundtrack.
It's so weird. It's so random. There's nothing on it that actually really makes sense.
No, the fact that your teen... I know we're jumping ahead, but the Smiths belong in No rom-coms ever. I gotta say, as much as you know, that's...
I mean, like, but like the Smiths and Jimmy Eat World, two natural, and Motley.
Yeah.
Like, those three bands being on the same
Someone
soundtrack.
was really going for it with this one.
You know, I know that oftentimes soundtracks get made fun of in like pop culture settings as being like sort of a...
I love soundtracks.
I love soundtracks.
I
like
just
people
love them.
talk about them in like in movies and stuff about like, oh, that's not like a true music fan. Barf. Go away.
Yeah.
You like, oh my God.
You stay away from my Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, because that is a soundtrack for me.
You try and pry the Snatch soundtrack out of my hand. I refuse.
Oh, that's almost the same soundtrack.
I know, it's really good.
Wow,
Yeah,
okay.
no, I know.
I agree. I don't understand that at all. And I love seeing the pictures inside my head of remembering the film.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and boy, what a segue. 'Cause,
Yeah. What a segue.
This is quite a film.
So you're listening to Pop This. I'm Andrea Warner.
I'm Lisa Christiansen.
I just like
It sounded like a really good idea because it was an anniversary.
No, look, we love anniversaries, and I do think it was a good idea because I can't remember, like, even Easy A didn't make me as mad as this film.
Yeah.
Like...
Yeah, this is one of these movies that makes you, which it is Never Been Kissed.
Oh, yeah, we're doing the 20th anniversary of Never Been Kissed, and I know people are very excited about it right now and thinking back on it, and I, like...
My first flush of enthusiasm, of just remembering that can-do gal, she's going to get that story because she hasn't been showing much confidence in herself, really died quickly on the vine.
Oh, was it? Let me just ask a couple of questions as to what killed it first. Was it the fact that because she had mousy brown hair and then suddenly got a bleach blonde hair, and yet we were not given a makeover scene?
Yeah.
Did that kill it first? Was it when her gross Shakespeare teacher first made
there.
googly eyes at her?
Right there.
Because she doesn't look that much older than a 17-year-old.
Well, she's in high school.
Uh-huh.
And no matter how old you think someone looks and how mature they act, they're still your student in high school.
Yep.
I think those boundaries are pretty clearly drawn.
Was it the horrific wardrobe that Josie is stuck with initially, where it's a short sleeve blazer where her t-shirt sticks out, the sleeves of her t-shirt stick out below the sleeve of the blazer?
Yeah, that's all there, and the cherry on the cake is David Arquette. With one of the grimmest, grossest baby man performances in a very crowded field.
See, and this is like, I am very much looking forward to having a conversation about this because I think there is an argument to be made that he is not the grossest man in this movie.
Well, and again, a crowded field. I mean,
such a crowded field.
It really. I mean, I'm willing to debate that, but also I am willing to give up and say you're right because...
I mean, like, but honestly...
I feel like we're all going to be right here.
None of us are going to be wrong. No, that's for sure.
No.
Okay, so...
Yeah.
Never Been Kissed. 1999 romantic comedy film directed by Raja Gosnell and stars Drew Barrymore, David Arquette, Michael Vartan, Lily Sobieski. Lily, I love seeing her. Jeremy Jordan, Molly Shannon, Gary Marshall, John C. Reilly, and James Franco in his film debut.
He was excellent.
He was fine. Drew Barrymore launched her own production company in 1995 called Flower Films with producer Nancy Javonen, and Never Been Kissed was one of the company's first productions.
Well, you know, that's going to be probably the only good thing about this entire movie.
And Lily Sobieski,
yeah,
she's great.
And Molly Shannon.
Molly Shannon's great too, and John C. Reilly's fine.
We like
whatever.
I like them a lot.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I am mad that they wasted Octavia Spencer, but I am glad she's at least there. But like, what a thankless role.
My goodness.
Yeah.
I almost was like, what is that?
Yes.
It was.
No,
yeah,
I know.
No, yeah, that's weird. And also, obviously, didn't do well for Michael Vartan's character, because who the hell's Michael Vartan?
So it really does take you back to 1999. I was like, oh yeah, that's the guy from Alias. And people thought he was so cute. He was married to Jennifer Garner, I believe.
That's Jennifer Garner's first husband?
I believe it's her first husband. Wow. And then she went on to Batfleck.
Yeah,
and, but man, we were really fooling ourselves that this was an attractive man in 1999. Like, I don't really spend a lot of time sort of like talking about like how cute men are or not. It doesn't.
The thing is, he had no charm either. Like
zero charm.
It was flat. It's astoundingly dull.
I am fairly certain that he thought he was better than this movie, and that he just showed up so he could be like the romantic lead,
or
in a comedy,
or he realized how really disgusting.
Maybe he did realize that, but
he kind of leaned back a bit.
I don't think that's the case.
Okay, well,
I'm so sorry.
I was going to give Michael Vartan, I don't know why I'm obsessed with saying that name, a benefit of the doubt there for a sec, but I guess I will not now.
I mean, you can. It's...
Okay, well, let's just give people a chance now. They've got a bit of a setup, but here's the synopsis.
Yes.
So, Josie Geller, Drew Barrymore, a baby-faced junior copywriter at the Chicago Sun-Times, must pose as a student at her former high school to research contemporary teenage culture. With the help of her brother, Rob David Arquette, Josie infiltrates the inner circle of the most popular clique on campus. If that sounds screamingly unoriginal, it's because it is. But she hits a major snag in her investigation, not to mention her own failed love life, when she falls for her dreamy English teacher, Sam Coulson, played by Michael Vartan.
May I just, from the outset, point out that Josie is 25 years old. She has only been out of high school maybe 7 years.
Yeah.
She's going back to the same high school where she was a student, and no one knows her. No one recognizes her. None of her teachers. I was thinking
this is definitely a movie that could not be made post-internet. Obviously, the high school situation.
100% it should not be made post-internet.
You're generally, they put your grad picture up on the wall.
Your grad pictures are on the wall. But honestly, my teachers did not go anywhere.
They didn't die.
Eventually some of them died.
Well, yeah, but not in 7 years.
Not in 7 years. There was still a ton of people that I knew, some that I visited with. I became casual acquaintances with some of my high school teachers after I was done.
Yeah. What about if Matthew McConaughey went there? He was always coming back,
he
right?
Was always coming back.
Driving his car past. He would have recognized her.
Yeah, and also her brother had gone to high school with her. So when he re-enrolls in the school, it's completely a ridiculous plot point.
Can I also just say Rob Geller, and he eventually marries Monica Geller.
No, yeah.
I texted you that.
You sure did.
You sure did.
You sure did. I will say, I had not rewatched the movie at that point, so I was just like, I gotta believe you, because I don't remember.
Because that's so crazy.
Weren't they? No, I guess they got together a couple years later. They hadn't quite gotten together yet.
He wasn't right at the very beginning of Friends. He wasn't.
But Friends ran through the mid to late 90s. It wasn't.
But she didn't. But he didn't.
They got married in, I think, 2002 or something. Yeah. And this was 99. Yeah.
So they met when we did Scream.
And Scream was 98.
So a year later. But then she wasn't on Friends yet?
No, she was on Friends. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
So there's
I would not be surprised if the screenwriter was like, I'll make this little inside joke for David Arquette.
Because we're not grossed out enough by a teacher hitting on his student. We need some incest.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
No, I know. I like it, right? It's a, yes. It's such a troubling film.
And you want to like it because we've seen so many.
So
we love Drew Barrymore. I mean, what's not to love about Drew Barrymore?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, she's seen a lot. She's been through a lot. She came out a really amazing person, a parent, committed business person. She's doing all the things that she wants to do. She's living her dream. Mm-hmm. But she made this movie, and it's hard because Like that's so uncomfortable.
Well, I think about 1999, and then I think about how Love Actually was made in 2002. And how we have watched that every year, and it's become increasingly gross. And like the more you watch it, the grosser it gets. And I think that's like, when I first watched this movie in 1997 or 1999, sorry, because I was not like prescient and just envisioning a future where Never Been Kissed was my dream. But I remember, like, I vaguely remember watching this movie. It didn't make the hugest impression, but I was like, oh, it's fun, whatever. I just feel like, obviously, we have different contexts now, but I also just feel like even I would have been 20 years old in 1999, and I did not have the wherewithal even then, I don't think, to be, like, adequately creeped out by a high school teacher going after his student, because in a lot of ways that was sold to me as the ideal fantasy for a teenage girl who was older beyond her years.
Yes.
Like
that was everyone's dream, to be considered by an older man, to be somehow so mature.
Oh my God, the amount of weird grooming that goes on in like high school rom-coms is so creepy.
Yeah.
And it's still a thing. Like, it's still...
all they would have had to have done, and it's all that you would have to have done here, is had one scene where she confides in him. At the beginning, when she hands in a paper. I'm writing the whole script, rewriting the script here, right on the spot.
Yeah, please
so she hands in her Shakespeare paper, and he can tell. This is not... This is not a high school student.
Yeah.
You either plagiarize this or you got it. Something's up.
Yeah.
And then she goes, "Oh, you got me. I'm 25. I'm doing a story. I'd appreciate if you could keep this under wraps for me." And he's like, "Oh, okay. Wow, that's super interesting and weird. But sure, I can do that for you because obviously we have a spark and I was uncomfortable about it. And now I can feel good about it." And then, as we know, splitting two people up in a rom-com, if you really want that baseball kiss scene at the end, is not challenging.
No.
There could have been a million things they could have done there.
Yeah. And
save the film.
And like, I just... like, if they really wanted to go with the sort of like angle of, hey, like, I mean, her newspaper editor can identify, you know what the story is here? Your creeper teacher wanting to get all up in your pants.
Yeah.
And she's having to make excuses for him, to apologize for him, to say, no, you don't really understand what's going on.
And literally, John C. Reilly understands completely.
He completely understands.
Yes.
And I wish, like, maybe just, like, take that, like, more deeper and, like, just like, ride that a little bit more. Like, make it a, like, kind of more black comedy. I don't know. It was just, oh, boy. It was so uncomfortable. And the idea that, like, her whole office full of coworkers is watching her on this what is only state-of-the-art technology even in 2019,
and invading privacy like nobody's business.
It was early reality television, just from her chest vantage point.
Did you mention Jessica Alba in here?
Jessica Alba as well.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, I know,
because that was something.
Yeah.
Things have got so much better for you, Jessica Alba.
I know.
You don't know this when we watch the movie, but you become a billionaire.
I mean, who's also subject to a lot of lawsuits now, but, you know, to be fair.
But there was a moment
there was a moment
really had it all.
Really, yeah. I just like, there's so many improbable things. Like, just the fact that, but again, the fact that her, like, office mates are sitting around watching this reality television from the vantage point of her chest and cheering on a 27-year-old man making googly eyes at a 17-year-old girl.
Yeah.
So gross.
Yeah, it is. And then let's add the other dimension of David Arquette's character, her brother, who decides to go back to school to help her to be popular, to throw out weird, creepy, I had sex with her, she's really hot, so she can become popular, which is really gross. And then start seeing one of the students. And then if you were ever wondering if there was some kind of moral ambiguity in their head, that's over at the party where he says, "See you later, Mrs. Robinson." because she's going to go talk to one of the students
with her boyfriend.
Her boyfriend
who's also 17.
Yeah.
I mean, the one reason I liked that line, actually, weirdly enough, was just like, she's worried that he's going to like do this thing with this 16-year-old girl, but she's not thinking about how she's completely
but that's
also
where,
like it's
that's where I thought the movie wasn't
it doesn't know what it's doing.
It doesn't know what it's doing. When they throw that line out, then you're conscious of how creepy this entire movie is.
I mean, and maybe that's why I like that line, because it makes it extra creepy. Like I want this movie to stop pretending that it is a cheery, remember, like, I don't know if Stephen Schelling was saying this to you and I, and maybe it was just to me at one point, but do you remember like the first episode of Glee?
Yes.
And how it was actually like kind of dark.
Yeah.
And he was actually framing this kid for pot possession so that he could get him to be in the choir. I want that in my teen movies that are sunnily trying to tell me that this gross thing is super cool.
Well, that's why we all liked Mean Girls so much.
Yes.
Right? Because it had a really interesting, it was able to fix that tone of being really dark and horrible, but having a center that was nice, and knowing when to go back and forth on that. And that is complicated, because that's why I hated Heathers, because I felt like...
I know, and I was like, that's why I love Heathers.
Exactly. And Heathers was just too darn dark for me.
Yeah. No, and I get it. But
yeah, but I felt like Mean Girls was able to do both. Yeah. I do not know what this is.
This movie does not know what it wants to be at all.
Why not just college? What's wrong? We were all humiliated in college. Why does it have to be high school?
Well...
College would have fixed this.
That's the other...
I mean, sure, it's still, again, a professor and a student to make friends. It's frowned upon. No, it's actually wrong.
Yes,
but it's not as horrible.
Well, at least people are usually above age.
They're adults. They live on their own. They can smoke without being arrested.
Yeah, like, it's just, like, some minor things. Like, but even just, like... So, Gary Marshall's character, and I know that really at this point... half this podcast could be called, like, just, like, why do you keep crapping on Gary Marshall? But I'm sorry. This is apparently all I have to do with my life, which is just
I guess
dump
really
on his legacy.
That much of a part of pop culture, really. Wow.
Yeah, which, I mean, congrats.
Crazy.
Fine. And look, I like Pretty Woman. With all the complicated things around Pretty Woman, I still like it. It's a good movie. Anyways, but that said, his newspaper character... decides that because he doesn't understand his grandson, he's going to send this girl into high school to do an undercover thing. He's planning that she's going to be there for like 3 months or something, but they're pressuring her to come up with like a weekly story on like exposing teen culture. I will say, she is not a good reporter.
No, she's not.
She is a terrible reporter. And ultimately, when she does get her story, whatever that story, it is a very poorly written...
Sure is. Yeah.
Like, editorial?
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
As opposed to a feature? It was truly wretched. I just feel like this movie... It either needed to be, like, 60% funnier or 30% darker. Yeah. Like, those are my estimations off the top.
And another thing that was tired for me, too, and I didn't recognize... Again, it's... Going back and whatever that was going on in 99, I guess we were all like, yeah, that makes sense. Now it doesn't. And I'm sick of seeing, like, the Molly Shannon, I sleep around with everyone, but I can't get a man. Like, are we still doing that?
Yeah.
Have I not? Because I don't know if I'm watching the same things anymore. Because I'm really, really, really tired of that particular thing. And I think we're probably still doing it.
I think probably it still gets done. I think not as much. Like, I think there are just... But even in 1999, there were way better movies. Like,
isn't this around the time of Sex and the City starting too? 99?
Sex and the City started in 98.
98?
97.
Okay, so around the same period. Because I'll say one thing: we've had lots of issues with Sex and the City, but thank goodness Samantha got to be Samantha.
Yeah.
I mean, we had sometimes you go like, oh, that's a bit weird to have her character like that. Now I'm seeing this was what we were living with.
Well,
we were living with women and shame and sex constantly, or to be the perfect girl, you'd never been kissed.
Yes.
Right? That was our other takeaway. That she had to wait for the most special boy, man, whatever now, to kiss. Meanwhile, Molly Shannon is the example of what can go wrong if you'll just kiss any boy. Mm-hmm. You'll end up like Molly Shannon. Working. I don't know that it seemed like there was a cautionary tale going on in this movie.
And yet they didn't even commit to that.
No,
like it was so lazy on so many levels. And like I'm really sort of still trying to figure out.
Are you traumatized?
Like this movie.
It was hard to keep going sometimes.
It was really hard to keep going. I was watching it with a friend of mine who I never get to watch movies with her because she lives in Montreal. She was just in town and staying with us for the night.
Oh God, this is what you did to her?
Well, she was working while I was watching it,
Okay.
and it was very easy for her to continue working. And she listens to the podcast faithfully, so I'm sure she'll be delighted to. Hi, Erin. I'm sure she'll be delighted.
Hey, Erin.
She'll be like super delighted to have her name dropped here, but she was like, "This is terrible."
Yeah.
Like there are some really awful moments.
We have a list here of these. The Ferris wheel scene, very uncomfortable.
Oh yeah, what is the worst scene? Okay, so the Ferris wheel scene, the prom scene.
The prom scene, very problematic because when he pouts off when he finds out that she's actually older, wouldn't this been the moment where he could have gone, "Thank goodness, because I'm hot for you, and now I'm legit."
It is the weirdest level of disappointment to find out that you are not lusting after a like illegal teenage girl, like
should not have been dancing
underage
You
teenage
should not
girl.
have been dancing with her like that.
He should not have been dancing with her like that.
No.
He should not have broken up with his girlfriend.
And told her,
Like,
"Oh, I shouldn't be telling you these things."
it's so like
No,
it
of
is
course you
such
shouldn't.
a predatory like a series of actions. This is why I actually am like, well, I mean, I guess at least like David Arquette's character showing up as a risky business at his prom.
Yeah, but okay, there's some other issues there. Have you seen Risky Business?
Oh, no.
Okay, I have seen Risky Business, and I know this was the Kama's favorite couples, right? Again, one of those scenes where you're like, how much money do these people have to get these costumes together?
Yes.
But here's the thing. Who Tom Cruise brings, or who he's being Tom Cruise, his date's a hooker.
Yeah.
That's who Rebecca De Mornay is, a
Yes.
prostitute. Mm-hmm. That is what you come to your high school dance as? Mm-hmm. And everyone's going to be, "Oh, this is great."
At this school, yes.
At this school,
honestly,
apparently.
there were two people dressed, I think, as Adam and Eve in just strategically placed leaves.
Yeah.
So in this school, anything goes.
Anything goes. I mean, some of the costumes were, I remember thinking, kind of interesting. There was the Sandy and Grease. Mm-hmm. But some of them, that one there in particular was like, what even are we doing here?
Also,
and what were the Village People doing there? Did I miss that?
Yeah, the headdress and and also for a movie set in Chicago. I mean, we've seen this happen over and over again. Lots of famous Chicago filmmakers are so crucially white that they have literally, apparently, never seen a black person to cast them in their film.
No.
This movie does have a few black actors in it, but in order to the bar that they all go to hang out at is like that's the only to show that they're cool.
Well, how about the man? She got the cake
they
from?
have to adopt and exploit black culture, and then further reggae culture, and there's so many levels of what is even happening through this movie. It feels like one of the most ill-advised scenes. I mean, I did like the band, but it just feels like one of the most ill-advised scenes ever.
Yeah.
Like, we were watching it and we're like, what is even happening?
I do not know what was happening.
Could not
there.
tell you.
No, I could not either. And that scene is just, again, it was an awful lot of cliche scenes you've seen in so many other movies.
Yes.
And to have the prom, I mean, this was no Pretty in Pink.
another.
The last time I heard the Smiths in a rom-com high school setting.
Sorry. I just, like, Drew Barrymore is so much better than this movie.
I know. I love Drew Barrymore.
I do too. What's your favorite Drew Barrymore?
I was really thinking about that, and I was thinking about how I really loved her in The Wedding Singer.
I loved her in The Wedding Singer,
and
too.
I just really love that movie. And, I got a lot of issues with Adam Sandler. And
Me too.
But that's a really sweet,
I like that movie
fun,
a lot.
lovely movie, and I loved her in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I really fell for those Charlie's Angels movies. I thought they were so good.
I like the Charlie's Angels movies as well.
Yeah.
And with the reboot, I just got a notice the other day from my electronic press kits from the studio people from the new film. They sent me the first pictures of the new Charlie's Angels reboot with Kristen Stewart.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to hold out a lot of hope.
Are we that old?
Yes. Oh, sorry. Yes, we are that old.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I was kind of like, why not just bring back the gang? But
yeah. I'm sure that they'll probably make
cameos,
some
or
cameos,
something?
but I guess Cameron has retired.
Right,
and,
she has.
Yeah, Drew Barrymore is doing
Lucy Liu's was on that Sherlock show.
She was on Elementary for a long time, and she's got other stuff going on. And she was in that movie that was not good, but she was great in it.
We watched it. Yeah.
We watched it from Netflix.
Yeah.
And Drew Barrymore's on Santa Clarita Diet, which I also enjoy, and I'm behind, but
yeah.
I liked Charlie's Angels as well. I mean, that said, I haven't watched it in a long time. So
and wait a second, and then the bad guy was Justin Theroux, who was married to Jennifer Aniston.
Uh-huh.
I swear to God, we have to just talk about Friends one day and the
one
connections
day.
to all of Hollywood.
I would love to talk about Friends because it's very popular among millennials, and really young millennials, not ones that are actually a year away from me. The aging millennials.
I interviewed the woman who wrote a book about Friends and its pop culture relevance, and she was fantastic. And this will blow your mind, but if you can even get your head around this, it's even more popular in England.
Yes. But it's also it's the young millennials watching it on Netflix who adore it, and that have really sort of leveraged it to that ridiculous deal that Netflix went to keep it for one more year. They can't keep One Day at a Time on, justice for One Day at a Time, but they can roll out,
Well, nostalgia, as you know.
I know. And I like nostalgia sometimes.
I do not.
But I know.
I do not. I'll actually, it's not nostalgia that makes me watch a Friends episode. It's just because I actually think it's a good show. It's not the best sitcom ever, but I did listen to a really great interview on a podcast with Pete Holmes and I'm sorry, I'm blanking on her name, my crazy ex-girlfriend.
Oh, Rachel Bloom.
Rachel Bloom, and the two of them were breaking down watching Friends and how they think it's just horrible that people are so cruel to it, because they said it is such a perfect sitcom. Mm-hmm. You watch it, and that's how you learn. The chemistry from the actors, the writing, act, they said that is the blueprint of what all of us here are trying to create again.
I also like it on a very social level of organized labor, and how the six of them banded together and refused to negotiate their salaries separately.
Right?
It is one of the most powerful.
And that's early days, and they were young and and wouldn't really have known how that was gonna.
Well, and apparently I know Ross Geller, not a popular character, but apparently that was really David Schwimmer sort of took the lead on that. Oh. And him and Jennifer Aniston were being offered the most money because they were Ross and Rachel. Oh. And he said we gotta fight together to make sure we're all paid the same, and make sure we're all getting our profit participations and stuff like that. And he took apparently he was the sort of instigating lead on that, and that really I don't know that I've seen it done since then. Mm-hmm. I can't think of any situations where I can think of the whole cast being paid and fighting to be paid exactly the same.
Yeah.
So that no one is ever left out. They're stronger as a unit together. Yeah. It's really collective bargaining. It's basic sort of unionization, and I love it.
It's become mythological now.
Well, there's so much interesting power in it, and I think it's and
they left at the right time. I don't feel we had to jump the shark season.
I didn't care for the last one, but
it was wrapping up.
I know, but
it was wrapping up.
I know.
I have to say, last season, best Jennifer Aniston hair year.
Oh, that was a good hair year.
The bangs.
Yeah. I feel like Drew Barrymore would have been a great addition as one of her sisters, one of Rachel's sisters.
I did hear that Jennifer Aniston didn't want to be with Reese Witherspoon so much on the show.
Oh, really? Well, fair.
Mm-hmm.
But Reese Witherspoon and Christina Applegate were good. But
Yes.
I feel like Drew Barrymore could have been like a really good.
Right?
Yeah. I think maybe my favorite Drew Barrymore role, outside of Charlie's Angels and Wedding Singer, I loved her in Scream.
Yeah.
I thought that was like
That
such
opening,
a powerful cameo.
I think we were saying like we actually didn't need the rest of the film. You could have just had that, and I think that would have been a great film.
She was amazing.
It was scary. It was funny. It was tight. It was taut.
Yeah, it's like a perfect short film.
Agreed.
No, she was great in that, and I haven't watched.
That little bob was unusual for her, but
it was. I liked it as a look though.
Yeah.
I haven't watched Riding in Cars with Boys in a very long time.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen that.
Okay, I remember it vaguely as being good, but I would like to revisit it. I did enjoy Whip It, which was her directorial debut.
Yes.
And we actually haven't done a full podcast just on Whip It. And our lovely producer, Andrea Gin, and I were talking about that the other day, and how it'd be so fun to have like a Terminal City roller girl come and do Whip It with us.
Yeah. I do remember seeing Irreconcilable Differences when she was a little girl.
Oh,
and that's where she sues her
killed
parents.
me. Yeah.
That is good. And that was Sharon Stone and Ryan O'Neal, wasn't it?
Oh, I have no idea. I can't remember who that was at all. But
and Shelley Long.
Shelley Long. Yeah. Was it Shelley Long?
Wasn't it Shelley Long?
I don't remember who it was at all.
I feel like, now that you say it, I feel like I just said gobbledygook, but
no, I love
I just haven't said Shelley Long
I love
in
Shelley
such
Long.
a long time.
I love Shelley Long so much.
I'm pretty sure it was.
Okay.
Yeah. And
you got
getting
yeah, you got it all right.
Bing,
you got
bing,
it all right.
Bing, bing.
Good
Why
job.
do I remember that? Andrea, help me.
I mean,
why is that information I think I need? It'll never, I don't.
You know, it might happen in the future where you're desperate for a crossword answer.
It's not ever. It's a waste of space in my head.
It might be. It might be useful. The other thing I was talking about with my friend Erin that I would just like to reflect on for a minute, because this continues to bother me in films, and we never really quite get it right, is that if you are sort of a quote-unquote loser in high school, to the extent that Josie is depicted as being, you know you're a loser. No one is
shaming you into that moment?
No. Like, you can be ashamed and abused and awful, and like awful things can happen to you for sure. But it is unlikely that you are standing at the front of class reading a poem to a boy who's awful.
Yeah.
And then, like...
Yeah, were you thinking that was going to somehow endear you to the school?
Well, and I don't want to blame Josie, but I feel
No,
like
I'm not.
the way
I
that
just
these
feel
characters
like...
are being... No, but this is the thing. It makes me so mad, because I feel like we are constantly given these characters that are very... They're very unrealistic. Like...
Yeah.
They're...
And the only way Hollywood knows how to indicate that somebody is unattractive is braces and hair in your face.
Hair that hasn't seen conditioner in a week. That's all. That's
like,
all.
She's not a mother at some point that would go, honey, why don't we just,
But even still,
trim.
like with that, just the idea that like ugliness can be coded as being a loser as just being braces.
Yeah, I know, that's it, exactly.
Like, this is appalling to me.
Yeah.
And just the fact that like, and what did she, as someone who apparently is like sort of like a caring person and a nice person who is actively being bullied and tormented by all of her, like...
Did she not have any friends? It didn't seem like it.
Well, she did have that friend with who was the fat girl who was played by... who she goes on to play Tracy Turnblatt on Broadway in Hairspray.
Okay.
And Marissa Jarrett Winokur. Or Winkor, I believe. Anyway... I always know my fellow fats. And she comes running up to her to say, like, he's gonna ask you to the prom.
Oh, right, yes,
and
that's
so she has, like, that moment.
Yes.
But what does she like about this guy? Like, he is so awful.
Yeah.
There's nothing redeeming about him. At least when, again, going back to Glee for a second, when, Rachel's character has a thing for Finn, Finn at least is sweet.
Yeah.
I mean, he's clueless.
Yeah.
Bit dim. but he's sweet. This guy that we're setting up as being this person that she is going to read her heartfelt poem to in class and is so in love with. Like, there's nothing redeeming about him at all.
Question, though. Now I'm thinking, do we owe these painful scenes to Stephen King for setting this up in Carrie? Was that...
They actually even referenced Carrie.
They did, because obviously that's all I was thinking. As soon as she got the egg in the head, I was thinking, you better get some buckets of pig blood and get it to that prom stat. So I did hear that. But previous to that, we did do that. We did do Carrie.
Yeah.
Previous to Carrie, which was 77, were we... was that a popular, the girl tormented in school...
I mean, I don't know. I'm sure that there has always been, to a certain extent, like the sort of the classic depictions of, like, you know, the bullied and tortured kids at school. Like, I mean, obviously this has been going on.
Yeah, no, it has been. But I was just thinking,
sure.
we end up seeing this kind of homecoming queen scene and the announcement, and will it be the unpopular girl so many times. But I'm wondering, gosh, is this all because of Stephen King?
Maybe. I mean, I want to blame him for other stuff too. Like, I say that as someone who likes Carrie. I'm always sort of thinking, like, what is it that these, you know, we're told sort of like smart, misunderstood, sort of bullied, damaged kids. What is it that, I mean, is it just that they want access to that popularity? They want access to, like, you know, that sort of
these
like
are
level of beauty.
These are also adults writing about their stories, right? And how they see it. And I think that the truth is that most of us, I think myself included, just got out of high school under the radar, just wanted to get in and get out. And it wasn't a big scene, and it wasn't, you know what I mean? I think a lot of people just go in and out, but they make... there's a group of writers that every year just come along and they all want to set up the high school. Even watching, like, I would say the most accurate one to me was watching Freaks and Geeks. And it wasn't such an extreme, and the problems were a little more personal and smaller, and the whole school didn't share them.
Well, and also I just think, I mean, I do think that American schools have a slightly different emphasis on specific sort of like classic high school milestones. Like, we don't have like a homecoming
and
dance
a prom,
and like a prom and stuff like that. Like,
grad and,
none of that. It's not really transferable to Canada.
I think we're smart enough to realize this is so insignificant to the rest of your life. This is literally...
I mean, I just don't believe we're ever that smart.
Sorry.
That's okay. I mean, I don't believe we're ever that smart, but I see your point. Like, I just...
Well, I know there are certain times in your life when you were there that it felt really huge.
Yeah. And I mean, I think there was, like, definitely a certain amount of bullying. Like, I got bullied sometimes, but other times it was not. Like,
I got bullied in school, and it was quite traumatizing and upsetting and things like that. But in the long run, it wasn't like in these movies. It wasn't a big, you know what I mean? Like, these movies make it seem like the entire school knows.
It sort of makes sense because obviously, like, you know, it's cinematic. We're supposed to have these like outsized moments.
Yes.
But it always comes back to, like, someone who is sort of like depicted as lesser than, still craving someone who is allegedly better than them. Yeah. But who fundamentally, we've never seen any indication that this person is anything other than popular.
No, I know.
And is it just always the thirst for popularness?
Yeah, and it's
popularity. Popularness, not a word.
The weird thing is, to go back to Carrie, that guy was really nice.
And that's the thing.
He was a really good guy, and he wasn't involved in some kind of scam. To hurt her.
Like, we understand why she has a crush on him.
Yeah, because he's a really good guy, and I guess in some of them, but the bad ones, like this one, again, even like. If I missed a scene, I tried to watch all of this, and I did, but if I missed the scene where we understand why she loves this teacher so much and hasn't a moment gone, boy, this is really creepy. He should not be paying so much attention to one of his students.
Could not tell you.
I couldn't. He liked Shakespeare. Swear to God, any high school you're going to go to, there's going to be someone teaching Shakespeare.
the defining characteristic is that you like Shakespeare. But you know what? There are a lot of dudes who that is their sole defining personality trait, and they get women for years based on that.
Sure. And you know what? And I think that's weird. I would have liked, there are people who will discuss like a screenplay that starts in a certain way and then gets changed.
Yeah.
So there was something that seemed like it was trying to be explored so they were studying As You Like It.
Yes.
And the idea being that when you are not yourself.
Yes.
That you can.
The masks and
that you can be more like the things you wish you could show people.
Yeah.
And so that was represented in the character of Rosalind, who was playing a male. And
the speech that she gives at the end.
The speech that she gives at the end. But it felt like it didn't really push that.
It didn't.
It felt like it was. So I wonder if there was an original.
Oh my God. Do you think whoever wrote this hadn't ever actually read?
Oh boy, I don't know. Yeah. Because it felt like for a minute you're like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Like obviously that's a super interesting idea. And then as you said, we never got the makeover scene, which is backwards to the whole. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We never got so much of anything.
Yeah.
I hate to say it.
This does not pop.
This does not pop.
No, this does not pop. By the soundtrack.
Oh, yeah, the soundtrack. That's right. The soundtrack is fun and weird, and it's got lots of...
Eclectic. It'll be like a Spotify playlist just whipping around.
It'll be like 14 different people built a playlist together,
Yeah.
but imagine, that's nice.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, it's so uncomfortable. It doesn't make any sense. You won't have a great, the best and only really good reason to watch a good rom-com is a vicarious feeling you have of, as you were describing earlier, falling in love. Mm-hmm. And because you get those opportunities a few times in your life, when rom-coms are good, you can actually put it in your head and go back to that feeling.
Yep.
And it's kind of exciting. This movie will not give you that.
No, it will not. We end on something we like.
There you go.
So that's nice.
Yes.
Would you like to go first?
No, you go.
Okay. So I am going to hype a friend of the podcast and has been a guest on the podcast. And she has a new book of poetry, and it's truly wonderful. Dina Del Bucchia is her name.
Yes.
And her book is called It's a Big Deal.
Oh.
And it is a big deal.
Well, she's got a book, yeah.
She's got a book.
Yeah.
She's got several books, let's face it. Mm-hmm. But her new book of poetry is wonderful. It was such a fun book launch to be at. No one really does a book launch like Dina Del Bucchia. So just enjoy that. Go out and get it. It's great.
Excellent. And speaking of, as you were saying earlier that you like dark, I had, not for any good reason, not watched it, but finally I was like, okay, I'll take a look at Barry.
I'm watching it too.
Is that not
I love it.
Great TV?
Love it.
Honestly.
Yep.
I feel kind of embarrassed now that I waited.
No,
but there's a lot. There's a lot out there.
There's a lot of great TV.
There's a lot of great TV, but I haven't seen something that drew me in so quickly and truly is super dark, and I was laughing so many times out loud.
Yep.
So many.
It's great.
It really is fantastic. Everyone's really good. I mean, I think I've always known Bill Hader was a good actor. I mean, he, I think, created this as well.
Yep.
But Henry Winkler.
What a dream.
Just shining.
Yeah.
Just shining in this role.
Yeah, I really like it. I like shows that have a sub focus on wannabe actors in LA.
Yeah.
And so Party Down is one of my all-time favorite shows ever. And I will periodically rewatch it because it's just so great. And this is like Party Down, but with murder. Yeah. And I love it.
Yeah. And I feel like it's such an interesting thing because I bet you there's a whole lot of people who will watch this and sadly identify with some of those people.
Of course.
And
I mean, I probably identify with one or two as well.
Do you want to be an actor?
No, never. But in terms of having that sort of like
a dream
and just being like,
yeah,
maybe your dream is, it's nice to just be a dream.
Yeah, I have no dreams like that, so I feel quite comfortable I have, however, wanted to be a hitman. No, that's not true.
Look, Lisa, we know you love spy thrillers, and so, I mean, I'm going to say it's not super spy to tell us, but...
Right? You'll notice me now.
This is where your dream needs to just keep being a dream and not a reality.
I think I will just keep that as a dream. Yeah. You're safe, everyone.
Fantastic. Thank God. Well, thank you, everyone, for listening. And if you would like to hang out with us on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, you could absolutely do those things. You could rate and review us 5 stars.
5 stars.
On iTunes. You can stream us on Spotify. You can listen to us on Stitcher. Yeah, only 5 stars, though. It's great. Just keep hanging out with us online. We love it.
Yes, we do. We record at the Vancouver Public Library. Andrea Gin is our producer. And 5 stars. I'm going to work it into your brain somehow.
Perfect. Thank you.
Bye.